Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again this week. If you enjoy our conversations, please remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Today, I have Joanne DiMaggio. Joanne is a past life researcher, an author, and a soul writer. She is a member of the ARE, and I'm very excited to share her with you. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so excited to be here as well.
You are a longtime student of Edgar Cayce, a member of the ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment. Let's give them a little shout out.
Okay, the ARE was founded by Edgar Cayce around 1931, I believe. It's located in Virginia Beach, Virginia. You can visit it at edgarcayce.org. They offer ongoing conferences, classes. They have access to the Cayce readings. There's tours. There's just all kinds of opportunities to learn so much more based on the 14,000 readings that Edgar Cayce did. Edgar Cayce was the most renowned psychic of the 20th century, and his work lives on. He was really ahead of his time. So do check that out.
Readings on health issues, on soul evolution, on the history of humanity, all kinds of things.
Exactly. There's no any topic you want, just type it in and up will come a reading, I'm sure.
Fantastic. Well, it's one of the places I started my spiritual journey with. So I'm so excited that you were my guest today. So we could talk about lots of things, Joanne, but today I would really like to talk about soul writing. First of all, can you share what that is?
The easiest way to understand soul writing is to consider it as a written form of meditation. So if you think of prayer as you talking to God and meditation as God talking to you, soul writing is you taking notes. Basically, that's the easy way of describing it.
So is it a little bit like automatic writing?
It is not at all like automatic writing. I used soul writing as the thesis when I got my master's degree from Atlantic University, which you know is affiliated with the ARE. So I did a lot of studying of the Cayce readings, and Cayce was adamant about not doing automatic writing. And based on those readings, based on the work I did with Dr. Henry Reed, and then based on my own research, I was able to differentiate between the two. And for me, it's been really important to let people understand that there is a difference between them and to be cautious about it.
Oh, fascinating. So if I pick up my journal at the end of the day and I'm just writing almost like a diary, is that more like soul writing?
It's the same process as meditation. So if you are a regular meditator, or even if you're not, just to go into this quiet space, just to be in a place where you feel connected to the divine. And it's there's just a few steps that are really important. I list about 12 different steps. I didn't mean for it to be 12, but it came out that way, of how to do soul writing. But the most important ones were to really surround yourself with white light, say a prayer of protection, always do that. And just go into a meditative state. Close your eyes, take some deep breaths, relax yourself completely, put your pen down on the paper, and then ask the universe any question you want. This is what's so beautiful about soul writing. And it's just the same process that Cayce used to a certain extent, in that Cayce waited for questions. And then he went to source and he brought the answers in. With soul writing, you're doing basically the same thing. You're asking for the universe to answer a question. Now, it could be about any aspect of your life. To me, it's like a 24/7 phone home card, that we get when we first come to Earth. It's part of our tool package. And Spirit says, here, anytime you get into some trouble or you're lonely or you want to talk, we're here all the time for you. And so then you just sort of check in with a higher people believe that they're in contact with God, they're in contact with an ascended master, they're in contact with an angel or their higher self. It doesn't really matter. It's all information coming from above through your crown chakra, through your soul, out your arm and your hand and onto the paper. So then you just wait for the writing to begin. And I outlined some steps on how to get that writing going. So yeah, it's a profound way of attaining information that's intended to transform you and to enable your soul to grow.
So, would you consider the messages that come through, would they be channeled messages?
Well, it is a form of channeling to a certain extent. It's channeled message, but it's from a divine source via the written word. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like maybe a little bit more clarity on the difference between automatic writing and
soul writing.
This process, because there's a lot of people, right? A lot of people connect with spirits to get messages, and it would be really good for them to know if they're doing automatic writing or if they're connecting with the divine and it's coming through them.
Yeah, people use the term automatic writing, and I think it's because they don't know any better. Back in the 90s, I attended a conference, an ARE conference, and Dr. Henry Reed was there. And it's the first time I heard him talk about what he called inspirational writing. That's what Edgar Cayce called it. So any of your listeners who are members of ARE, they can access those readings by just typing inspirational writing in. And in those readings, you'll see Cayce talking about the danger of automatic writing. Okay, so the difference between them is, if I do a side-by-side comparison, with soul writing, that information is coming from within you. It's coming from within your soul. With automatic writing, it's coming from an outside source. With soul writing, there is the meditation, there is the prayer of protection. With automatic writing, that is seldom, if ever, even considered to be used. They just start writing. There's a total awareness when you're doing soul writing. You know exactly what you're writing. With automatic writing, you have no awareness. As a matter of fact, you don't know what you wrote until you come out of that trance and then read it. With soul writing, you just allow the message to proceed, the writing to proceed as in your conscious mind. With automatic writing, sometimes there's no control of your hand. The writing just happens by itself. With soul writing, your handwriting is pretty much the same as it is when you're in a conscious state. With automatic writing, the handwriting can be different. And most importantly, with soul writing, you feel as though your soul is being guided. It's being very gently nudged. With automatic writing, it directs you or impels you to do something. So with soul writing, you're going to get the collective consciousness. So the message is going to be, we are with you in love and in light. With automatic writing, often you get the ego-based I am here. I am telling you what to do. So that's when you know this is coming from an outside source. Hugh Lynn Cayce, Edgar Cayce's son, in his book, Venture Inward, talked about cases of possession that people came to ARE or wrote to them because they got into trouble with the automatic writing, and so that's the danger of it. And that's why they have listed automatic writing as like the number one no in developing your psychic abilities.
Wow, Joanne. I mean, it just sounds like such a rich and rewarding exercise to do with yourself and connecting with your spirit, not to mention the wisdom that comes through. If people wanted to actually start, do you have any tips for them?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, find a sacred space, someplace in your home where you feel that you won't be distracted and nobody will interrupt you, and a place that you may feel more connected to spirit. So whatever room you use to meditate in, claim that as your room. Then set the stage. Surround yourself with things that remind you of your spiritual journey, things like candles or incense or bells, which Cayce talked about, bells, or pictures, or whatever it is you want to do. In the beginning, I would say do it at the same time and in the same place, and that just sets up a habit. So in other words, you're telling spirit, hey, I'll be available to write at 9:30 every night for a half hour, and spirit will go, okay, we'll meet you at 9:30, we'll be there for you. later on, of course, you don't have to do this, but in the beginning, it helps to do that. Decide whether you want to use the pen or the keyboard. I always use a pen. I like the way it feels when the ink goes on the paper. You can use the keyboard, but keep in mind that your eyes are going to be halfway closed. If you shift over a little bit on that keyboard, you won't be able to read anything. So what I say is do it by pen and then transfer it to the computer. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Focus on an ideal. In other words, Casey talked about an ideal. Why are you here? What is your motivation, your soul's mission in life? If you focus on that, then the message comes in clear. Meditation is key, obviously. You need to enter into a meditative state. I always say a prayer of protection. Surround yourself with white light. You could say any prayer. Unity has a prayer. Mr. Casey gave a prayer, or you could just make one up and then get ready to write. Keep your wrists loose, pen in your hand. And I always suggest to start to make ovals, because out of the oval will come an E or an L, and out of that will come a word, and out of that a phrase, and out of that a sentence. So that's a way to just kind of jumpstart the writing. And then just allow the message to proceed. Don't turn your internal editor on. This drives teachers crazy because they want to correct the spelling, they want to correct the punctuation and the grammar. And what I say is, this is stream of consciousness writing. So you just have to, the pen will sometimes go to the end of the page and then it'll just keep going. Mr. Casey suggests you wait until you read what you wrote. Sometimes you can't do that, but you'll find that if you wait a couple of weeks and go back to reading it, it'll be completely different than what you thought it was. And then I always advise keep your writing safe, because this is a conversation between you and spirit. It's like going to a psychologist's office, right? And you are exploring different things that if somebody else came in and read that, they would not understand, and they may draw wrong conclusions. So I always say, just kind of keep it safe.
Do you ever receive messages through soul writing that might be like universal wisdom or something that could benefit?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I wrote my book, I turned my thesis on soul writing into my first book. I had a minister at a university interview me about it. And he said to me, do you realize how powerful these words are? And I said, no. And I wasn't being humble. I honestly did not realize that. But now going back, for instance, when I was doing a 2-week lesson plan on the difference between universal laws and the 10 commandments, the first message I got right in the middle, this often happens, the beginning of your message will be, hello, how are you? We're so glad to see you. The meat of the message is right in the middle. And then at the end, it's like, goodbye, it was nice talking to you, something like that. But in the middle, it said, when I was saying, well, what's the difference between a universal law and the 10 commandments? And the message was, there is no universal law that begins, thou shalt not. Now, Linda, I would never have thought of that in a conscious state. Never would I thought of that. So that's how I knew it was coming from a much higher source. So that is one of the ways of using soul writing, is to be able to ask an esoteric question. If you want to get deep into a philosophy about something, there are helpers on the other side who will come in and answer those questions for you. I have 9 different energies sort of that I work with, and then one of them is a comedian. I mean, everything is funny. I mean, it makes me laugh all the time. So it depends, whatever I'm writing about, whatever I'm asking, it seems like they send in the appropriate teacher. And this information flows that is just you sit back and you go, I never thought of that. I would have never written that. And then, of course, then that leads to who's doing the writing, So yeah, it can be extremely profound.
I would think also that the vibratory quality of it would just be so high that it would almost open you up to a state of peace or inspiration.
After I did my research project on soul writing for my thesis, the one thing that everybody in the project said across the board was that they no longer felt lonely, that they knew that there was always somebody there with them 24/7, and then they could access it anytime they wanted. That was a tremendous comfort to so many people. And it has been to me, it has seen me through some really difficult times when I'm looking for some solace, some or comfort or advice or guidance, like how do I get out of this? What does this really mean? How am I supposed to apply this to my current life? And this is where the dialogue comes in, and it's really quite amazing. And like I said, everyone can do it. It's not a special skill. It's in your toolbox. Just remember to pull it out and use it.
I think what I like the most about it is that it's so empowering for that person to connect themselves with wisdom instead of going to a psychic or a healer or teacher.
Yes, you can get guidance on any topic you ask. So if you want to know what synchronicity is, ask that. You can get an answer. You can enhance your psychic abilities with it. You can use it in various art forms. It doesn't have to just be writing. You could use it for composing music or, painting a picture. I mean, it's the same identical process. You can use it. I mentioned exploring esoteric philosophies. You can use it in psychoanalysis and healing because writing is very cathartic and really can help you. I know here at the University of Virginia Medical Center, they're offering journaling classes to cancer patients to explore that. You can use it for past life exploration, which is my passion. I use it at the end of some of my regression clients. It's just incredible all the different ways that you can apply it to your life.
So, Joanne, would you happen to have a passage that you could read to give us an example?
This was interesting in the lines of the past life work. I used it to have a conversation with my past life aspect. In other words, somebody I had been in a prior lifetime, and she was writing to me in a diary format because I'm doing the writing, and all of a sudden September 7th, 1793 pops up, and I'm like, what is this? And it's not very profound, but what she said was she was talking about just that day in that life, and saying things like the summer was especially beautiful. The flowers in the garden were resplendent in their color and fragrance. That's how I knew it wasn't me. I never used the word resplendent. I so enjoyed walking among them. I kept the memory of him every year. Almost sounded like a historical romance novel. There's a lot of profound information in my book, like what is synchronicity? I asked that question. The first sentence is there are no accidents, no coincidences. Everything is happening as planned, but only because one is wise in seeing opportunities for what they are and then following one's intuitive sense about manifesting them at the proper hour. I would never have written that, and it went on. So that's just an example, probably not a very good example because I wasn't prepared, Linda. But anyway, that's basically how it comes.
It's good. It's good. It gives us a real sense of information that can come through. And I think it's fascinating, the idea of conversing with another life. That's fascinating. It reminds me actually of a trilogy that Hank Wesselman had written about a life he had 5,000 years in the future. And he would go back and forth. He had them more as like visions or almost like actual experiences where he went into that lifetime. And it was just really fascinating. And the information and wisdom and the shifts in humanity, it's a really interesting trilogy for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing you can do with it is you can be in service to other people with it. I have an assistant professor or associate professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in the social worker department. And she had breast cancer and found the soul writing helped her with her healing and expanded her spirituality. And so she said, I really want to teach this to my social worker students so that they can then use it or teach their clients how to use it and enable them to do healing in the same way. So there's an example of how it can be mainstreamed. It doesn't have to be esoteric like past life stuff or psychic abilities. It can be everyday usage. So in a way, it's you channeling on behalf of somebody else. If they give you permission to do that, don't ever do it without them saying it's okay. But that was part of my research when I did my thesis about how to do it in that kind of a setting where, you're getting information on behalf of somebody else and then sharing that with them. And that's what I do when I do the regressions and I tack the soul writing on at the end, because I write at the same time that my client is writing, and then we just compare what each of us received. And so often the aha moments come in the writing rather than the regression. It's amazing to me how that works. That's how powerful it is.
And now you have a course coming up at the ARE this summer.
I do. I'm so excited about it. I just recently had soul writing trademarked, and I'm offering a 3-day certification course. So it's a deep dive into soul writing. We'll explore all aspects of it. Those that are participating will have an opportunity to write at these different levels, and we'll spend some time on past lives. We'll spend some time on being in service to others. We'll spend some time on exploring psychic abilities and esoteric philosophies and all of that. So it's 3 days in July, and if anybody's interested, please go to edgarcasey.org. Information on it is available. You'll get a certificate that says you completed the course. It's especially valuable to social workers, psychologists, any kind of counselor, to use it in their practice. And it really will deepen the kind of service they can offer people. But it's good for everyone else as well. So I hope that a lot of people will take advantage and do the course.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Joanne, if people would like to know more about your work, where can they find you?
They can go to my website, which is joannedimaggio.com, JoanneDimaggio.com. And all of my services are on there. If they want to book a regression or a soul writing session with me, they can. My books are on there, and I encourage everybody to visit the site.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Come visit me at thoughtchange.com. Pick up your copy of Learning to Listen. It's important if you want to do your soul writing. That's it for this week. Bye for now.